Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another video in our Android tip calculator tutorial series. Okay, so what we have right now is a working tip system, sort of, in the sense that you change this and the tip down there will change. What doesn't work, however, is if you change this number here, say we switch it to 15%, nothing happens. The number down here stays the same, and this slider stays at whatever percentage it was before. So we need to go fix that. So again, remember that this box right here is called tip percent, so that's what we're going to be using in this video. Before going on, let me just tell you one thing. I had you set this if conditional to include from user equals true. Just delete that, we don't need that. This is in the onProgressChange method. Make sure that the if conditional here is only SeekBar is equal to tip slider. We don't really need the other thing. I was going to use it for something else, but I changed my mind. So that was my bad. Also, my bad again. Right here we have tip percent value is equal to SeekBar.getProgress. It occurred to me that you actually don't need to do that. You can do that, but since whenever onProgressChange is called, we automatically get passed the progress as an int in the arguments. You might as well just use the argument right here, progress, instead of actually using getProgress. So yeah, you can replace that if you want to make for slightly cleaner code and slightly more efficient computing. But other than that, we can move on. As you can see, this tutorial series is kind of ad hoc. I'm sort of, at least in part, I'm making it up as I go along. So I'm going to go back and fix some stuff as we proceed. But yeah, so now that we're all on the same page, we can get started with tip percent. So let's just do this. Go and, I already wrote it here, get tip percent to be listened to by main activity, so set onFocusChange listener to tip percent. Because what we want is, if we edit tip percent to like 15%, we want it to click out of it and then have the tip slider update, as well as have stuff down here update. So we have to set the listener and then go down to onFocusChange, and at the top of it create a new if block, and the if block will be if v is equal to tip percent, and it lost focus rather than gained focus, so has focus is equal to false. When this happens, we want, that means the tip percent lost focus and not an order EditText like down here. What do we want to happen? Well, we want to set tip percent value, the double, to a new value, and it will be equal to v, again, which is tip percent in this case, in this block. We'll get text, and that'll be turned into a string, and then we need to turn the string into a double, so double.parse double, and we need to cast v as a EditText right here, because by default v is view still, since we're in the onFocusChange method. So if it is tip percent, then we get the text from tip percent, we turn it into a string, and then we turn it into a double, which we feed into tip percent value. And it occurs to me that we need to replace any possible non-double characters. In this case, a percent sign, because sometimes it'll have a percent sign here, like here. And if we use double.parse double on 32%, it'll give us an error. We can only use it on 32, so we have to replace the percent sign with nothing, like we did before with the dollar sign. Okay, once we have tip percent value, we can move on. What do we need to do? Okay, how about this? Let's create an if conditional. Now we want, when you're programming, you generally want to set limits for everything. So we want to set a limit for the tip percentage, just because this makes bugs much less likely to happen. So let's think of what is a good or a reasonable upper limit for tip percentage, and 50 is probably pretty reasonable. It's very rare that you're going to want to tip over 50% at a restaurant. So let's go and have this if conditional that'll set up the maximum tip that the user can put. So if the user put a tip percent that is higher than 50, then let's just set tip percent value to 50. So tip percent never goes higher than 50. That's our upper limit. Again, this is to avoid bugs. You can use a different upper limit if you want. Although the reason I picked 50 is because we already set this tip slider here to have a maximum of 50. So if you set it to, if you don't have this thing here, and you put like 100 over here, then later on you'll see that it'll say 100% here, and it'll be at the max here, but the max is 50, so it's just confusing basically. So if you do want a different upper limit, you can set it to 100. Just go back and make sure to set the maximum for the slider or the SeekBar to 100 as well in the XML. Okay, but back to this. Once you have the maximum set, you can do this. Oops, tip slider dot set progress. Tip percent value. So set progress, it does exactly what you think it does. You pass it an integer, and it will set the progress of whatever SeekBar it's called on to that integer. And since tip percent value is actually a double, we have to cast it as an integer like so. Okay, and now let's test. And you'll notice that I put a lot of comments in here. That's mostly for me, but you can read them if you want. Again, it's a good idea to have comments in your code. It helps you remember what everything does, and is a good learning tool in general. Alright then, let's make this 100 so it's easy to verify the math. So this still works, I assume? Yes, it does. Now let's change this to 29. Click out of it. As you can see, the SeekBar jumped up to 29%, and the value down here went up to $129. Now let's check something different. Let's say 100%. What happens? As you can see, it maxed out at 50%, and it went up to 50 here, and down here it should say $150, which it does. So again, what happened was, so we lost focus on tip percent, and when that happens, we set the tip percent value to whatever the user put in for tip percent. And if it's higher than 50, we set it back down to 50. And then we use tip slider.set progress to whatever the tip percent is now. And what that does is it activates, because set progress changes the progress of a SeekBar. So that means it activates the on progress change method. So it goes all the way down here, and then it runs the code that we already wrote before for when you change the SeekBar. That is, it'll set the progress, or it'll set tip percent to the progress. We don't really need that for this, but it does it anyway. It sets the tax for tip percent. Again, we don't, so what that does is just formats it so that when the user puts like 50, it'll change it to 50%. And then it sets tip value to 1/100th of what it was, and then it runs through the update or the diner list, and uses update total on every diner. So yeah, that's why we don't need all this code inside this onFocus change list, or inside this onFocus change method. It's because when we use set progress, all of the tip code that we wrote down here also gets run again. So that avoids some duplicate code, which is nice. And I think that's all I'm going to do for this video. And we'll work on other stuff in the next video. But yeah, right now, it's looking pretty good. We're making some good progress, I think. Okay, see you guys in the next video.